Cold, aloof, thinks she's better than everyone else, dramatic, high maintenance, hard to love. You've probably been called at least one of those, right? Maybe by a partner, a parent, someone you thought was a friend. Maybe it's just the words that show up in your own head at 2 a.m. when you've had yet another fight with your partner and you're going over it again and again and again. You don't mean to be any of those things. You don't want to be labeled with any of those things. Yet this has been a pattern your whole life. Cold and distant, or dramatic and too sensitive. Maybe both, all at the same time. So what's actually going on underneath all this? Let's talk about it, shall we? This is the Neurodivergent Love Lab. I'm Jenna Dalton, a psychologist who is late diagnosed ADHD, and I help ADHD, autistic, and ADHD humans make sense of love. Last episode, we talked about the ADHD nobody was looking for, about the quiet, internal ADHD that gets missed in girls and women. The version nobody tests for because it doesn't look like a wiggly little boy bouncing off the walls. This is its companion episode. Today, we're talking about autism in women, or people assigned female at birth and socialized as women, and specifically, the ways it shows up in your relationships that you didn't even know were a thing. The ones that get read completely, devastatingly wrong. Plus the ones people think they understand and somehow still misunderstand. So let's clear things up and help you better understand how your autism shapes you as an individual and as a partner. So let's start with the picture in almost everyone's head. What does autism look like? Most people would say a boy, young, maybe 7 or 8, obsessed with trains and organizing said trains. He rarely, if ever, makes eye contact. He's logical to a fault, bad with feelings, doesn't really need people, and would rather talk about the trains than tell you he loves you. But that's not you, right? The entire cultural image of autism was built on autistic boys. The research was done on boys. The diagnostic criteria were written for boys. And so for decades, girls and women who are autistic just slipped right through. Because we were looking for a boy with trains, and what we had was a girl who was watching everyone in the room so carefully, she could tell you exactly what mood her teacher was in before she was 3 steps into the classroom. So girls didn't get the obsessed with trains stereotype. We got a whole different one. 2 of them, actually. And the funny thing is, they contradict each other. On one side, cold, aloof, stuck up, thinks she's better than everyone else. The girl who didn't understand the social code, and so she got labeled as an outcast. And on the other side, and often within the very same girl, too much, too sensitive, too intense. Why does everything bother you? Why do you take everything so personally? Why are you crying again? Cold and too sensitive, the multifaceted autistic woman who feels so misunderstood, even when she tries to explain herself. On the outside, it can look like she's closed off, avoidant, emotionally detached, but underneath that, she's flooded with so many feelings, it's overwhelming. So she just shuts down, and she doesn't know what's happening or how to explain it. That's what this episode is about. I'm going to help you understand yourself better and help you translate that understanding so your partner can also understand you better. And I've actually even created a free workbook to help with all of this. More on that later. Now let's get into it. I'm going to split this into 2 halves. First, the traits that get misread, then the ones people think they understand and still misjudge. And like always, these are traits, not symptoms. This is wiring, not something to be fixed. Some of them cost you. Some of them are really wonderfully unique things about how you love. All of them are real. And almost all of them have been shaped by how a woman in particular experiences autism. Because in addition to your unique wiring, you have a lifetime of being told to be agreeable, accommodating, easy, good. It's the good girl mask that has protected you for so long, kept you safe, kept you from being rejected entirely. Sure, there have been moments of rejection, but as long as you were good enough, as long as you followed the rules, you weren't rejected completely. Okay, let's start with the autistic traits you likely have that get misread and led to you being misunderstood. Let's talk about the empathy myth and the double empathy problem. So here's one of the biggest misunderstandings about you: the idea that you and other autistic people don't have empathy. I need to be really clear here because this one has done so much harm, and it has done specific harm to women. That idea is wrong. It's not a little outdated, it's just completely wrong. And it's been wrong for a long time. Here's what I see in my practice over and over. I see autistic women who feel things at a volume most people will never experience, who love so deeply and so loyally, they'll quietly reorganize their entire life around one person's comfort, who notice a subtle shift in a partner's voice before anyone else in the room, who lie awake at night replaying a 2-second look on someone's face, sick with worry that they hurt them. That is not an empathy deficit. That is the opposite of a deficit. That is a Hoover Dam-sized amount of empathy with no innate ability to turn that deeply feeling sensitivity down. There's actually a clinical name for this. It's called the double empathy problem. Here's how it works. For a long time, when an autistic person and a non-autistic person misunderstood each other, we blamed the autistic person. We said, she lacks social skills. She can't read the room. She's the problem. But the research suggests something completely different. The misunderstanding goes both ways. Autistic people actually read each other just fine. Non-autistic people read each other just fine. It's across the two neurotypes that the signal gets scrambled, like two people speaking slightly different dialects, each one assuming that the other is just not good at communicating. Imagine someone with a thick accent speaking in your language. You need to work that much harder to understand them, right? Constantly needing to ask them to repeat themselves because it's just not making sense. This is what it's like. Now, couple this with the simple fact that women often find themselves in the position of managing everyone else's feelings. It's your job to do the translating. It's your job to read the room, smooth out the wrinkles, manage everyone's feelings, decode what your partner really meant. You are the glue, and you are the problem, and it's your job to fix it. But it wasn't a you problem. It was a translation gap, a two-way gap, and you've been doing the work of both directions alone for years. That's a lot on your shoulders. No wonder you're exhausted. Now let's move on to another trait that's often misread: info dumping. When an autistic woman tells you everything, and I mean everything, about the things she's obsessed with, that is not her failing to notice you've checked out. That is her handing you her heart. Sharing a special interest is intimacy. It's saying, this is the thing that lights me up, and I want you in here with me. It's a bid for connection, one of the most vulnerable ones a person can make. And here's the gendered knife in it. A lot of women learned young to fold themselves smaller, to not be too much. So when you do let it out, and when you do light yourself up about your thing and experience that autistic joy, and the person you love goes, yeah, sure. So anyway, or they simply just pick up their phone and noticeably tune you out, you don't just feel unheard, you feel confirmed. See, you're too much. I knew it. And you tuck it back in. Hey, quick interruption. If you're listening to this and some part of you is going, oh wow, that's me, I want you to know two things. One, you're not broken. Two, you don't have to figure this out alone. Because so much of what gets labeled as communication problems or you being too sensitive is actually a neurotype thing that no one ever named for you. A lot of what we talk about on this show lives in this fuzzy middle ground. Is it me? Is it my partner? Is it us? Is it ADHD? Is it autism? Is it both? Is it just that we're hangry? And that fuzziness is exhausting. It keeps you stuck because you keep having the fights. You just can't figure out why. That's why I built a free quiz called, Is this my brain or my relationship? Because that question is the question, right? It's the one that loops endlessly when you're late diagnosed and trying to make sense of years of feeling like the problem. The reason I made it, when you can name what's actually happening, it makes so much more sense. And once it makes sense, you can finally do something about it that isn't just try harder. Go take it at jennadalton.com/quiz. That's jennadalton.com/quiz. Okay, back to the episode. A bit of personal reflection here. This has happened to me numerous times throughout my 40 years. I've become so attuned to that subtle shift in body posture or that tone that suggests, whoa, you're a lot. I know this hurt. This feeling of sharing something that means so very much to you and being met with disinterest at best. So hear me when I say this. If you love an autistic woman, one of the most supportive things you can do is take her hand and walk into that room you're being invited into, because she doesn't share that space with just anyone. She's learned she can only share it with a handful of people she trusts. Don't hold that trust lightly. Okay, here's another trait that a lot of neurotypical or non-autistic partners really struggle to understand unless it's plainly named for them. Parallel play. So for a lot of autistic women, the deepest closeness isn't the candlelight dinner and the eye contact and the big emotional conversation. It's being in the same room doing two completely separate things. You reading, them on their phone. You cooking, them working on a project close by. Quiet, yet together, side by side. That is not avoidance. That is not, we never spend any quality time together. That is, I feel safe enough with you to stop performing and just be. And you have no idea how big that is until you understand how much of her day was performance, which we're going to get into, by the way. Okay, now let's talk about autistic attention, monotropism. A lot of autistic minds run on something called monotropism, attention that pours fully, completely, all the way in on one thing at a time, one very bright beam fixated in one spot. When that beam is on you, it's extraordinary. You're studied, remembered, adored, known in a way most people dream to be seen. But when it locks onto something else, a project, a deadline, the kids, a problem she's trying to solve, a partner can feel like they've vanished, like they got switched off. It's not that she stopped caring, it's that her attention is a spotlight, not a floodlight. And here's the tricky part. The world wants her attention to be a floodlight. Track everyone, tend to everyone, notice everyone's needs all at once. And she tries so very hard, but it just doesn't come naturally to her. So little by little, it exhausts her, trying to focus her attention in so many areas at once. That is one of the most challenging things about being an autistic woman. Then we have the classic autistic experience of alexithymia. This one I really need you to listen to because it gets so badly misread, especially in women. A lot of autistic people experience something called alexithymia. This is when an autistic person has difficulty identifying and naming their own emotions. The feeling is there, often it's enormous, but the bridge between feeling it and saying, I feel hurt or I feel scared, that's what's missing. Or it's simply running on a delay. So your partner asks, what's wrong? What are you feeling? And the honest answer is, I don't know. And that can come across as stonewalling, withholding, avoiding, like you don't care enough to share. But here's what I want you to remember. I don't know what I feel is not the same as I feel nothing. It's a wiring difference in the path between your heart and your words. And for women, there's an extra layer of cruelty here. You were told your whole life that you were too emotional, that you felt too much. And meanwhile, the actual experience inside you was often a wall of feeling so big and so fast, it overwhelmed you into shutdown and you couldn't even name it. Both of those things were true at once, and people constantly misread both of them. Okay, masking. This one is a biggie. If you take one thing from this whole episode, hear this. Autistic women mask, and the research suggests they mask more than autistic men. We camouflage, we fit in, we shapeshift into whatever you need us to be, and we are so good at it that it's a huge part of why we got missed for diagnosis in the first place. Think about what girls are trained to do from the time they can talk. Be sweet, be easy, don't make a fuss, read what people need and give it to them. Smile, make everyone comfortable. Be good. Now hand that training to a brain that already studies people obsessively, that already has scripts and rehearses, that already wants desperately to get it right. What you get is a woman who built an entire second self, who manages her eye contact like it's a part-time job, who rehearses conversations in the shower, who has a smile for every situation and a voice for every audience, who suppresses the stims, decodes the subtext in real time, performs normal, easy, fine, all day long. And it's exhausting. Then she comes home to the one person on earth she feels safest with. And the mask finally drops. And sometimes what's underneath is a shutdown. She goes quiet. She goes still. She needs the lights off and the noise to stop and the whole world's just pause. And her partner sees that and thinks, you're fine with everyone else. You light up for your friends, for your coworkers, for strangers at the store. And then you come home and shut down with me. You save your worst for me. And that hurts. And the truth is not that simple. You don't drop the mask at home because you care less about your partner. You drop it at home because home is the one place safe enough to finally stop holding it all together. The solution isn't to keep the mask on. The solution is to figure out a routine, a ritual, a way of reconnecting when you get home after you've had a moment, or 30 moments, or however many moments you need to regulate, rest, and take care of your needs when you've been focused on everyone else's all day long. And you're not connecting with your partner as a masked you or an utterly depleted you, but as an authentic you who allows herself to take care of her needs after a long day. So genuine connection with your partner is even possible in the first place. You unmask with your partner not because you care less about them, but because you trust them more than anyone to just be you. That's not rejecting them. That's inviting them to be around the real you. Okay, now let's move on to part 2, the stereotypical traits that people think they understand and they still don't quite get. So these are the traits that actually make it into the stereotype. So people expect them. They just still get them wrong, especially in women. Let's talk about sensory needs. Sensory sensitivity is real and it runs deep and it shows up powerfully in intimacy. Certain textures, certain kinds of touch, a tag on a shirt, the sound of chewing, a light that's too bright. These are not preferences. This is a nervous system getting genuinely, physically, deeply overwhelmed. So when an autistic woman flinches from a certain touch, or can't be held in a particular way, or needs the TV off before she can connect, that's not her rejecting you as a person. But here's the gendered trap. Women carry this enormous cultural pressure to be sexually available, accommodating, up for it. So instead of saying, this texture is too much for my system right now, a lifetime of training says, just push through, mask, don't make them feel bad, and she overrides her own nervous system again and again and again to keep the peace. And resentment grows in a place neither you or your partner can really see. And when nobody names it out loud until it becomes too loud to ignore and you push your partner away or tell your partner not tonight, I can't handle this texture right now, gets heard as I don't want you. That's so hard. Okay, here's another one. Routine and predictability. The need for a routine gets labeled as being rigid, controlling, inflexible. Why can't you just go with the flow? Here's what's actually underneath it. Predictability is how an autistic nervous system banks enough energy to be present for anything else, including your partner. Every unplanned change costs energy. A surprise detour, a last minute, let's just wing it. These are not small for an autistic brain. And now picture the woman who is also running the household, the calendar, the kids, everything. The mental load nobody else can see. Her routines aren't her trying to control the situation. They're the scaffolding holding up a person who is calm and available to love you at all. When you understand that, your so rigid turns into, oh, this is how you keep yourself regulated enough to love me and everyone else. Okay, what about directness? A lot of autistic people communicate directly and literally. They say what they mean and they miss the hints, not because they don't care, but because their brain processes the words that were actually said, not the ones implied underneath. Or at the very least, it's a heck of a lot more challenging for them to get the implication. But here's the twist for masking women, because this is where it flips. A lot of you were trained so hard out of directness that you swung the other way. You learned to hint, to soften, to never say the blunt thing, because blunt got you called rude, cold, not very ladylike. So you scripted yourself into a person who's endlessly accommodating and indirect. And somewhere along the way, you lost the thread of what you actually want. You got so good at reading everyone else that what do you want for dinner is a genuinely hard question. I don't know. What do you want? That's not you being difficult. That's a lifetime of erasing your own needs dressed up as easygoing. So whether your directness shows up as blunt honesty or as a learned exhausting niceness, the solution is the same. The directness was never the problem, and the niceness was never the truth. The you underneath deserves to be heard. Give her permission to be heard. So look at the entirety of what we just talked about. Hyper-empathy that reads as coldness. Info dumping that reads as being oblivious. Parallel play that reads as distance and disconnection. Monotropism that reads as neglect. Alexithymia that reads as withholding. The mask dropping that reads as punishment. Sensory needs that read as rejection. Routine that reads as controlling. And under all of it, a lifetime of training to be small, agreeable, and easy. All your traits misread, misunderstood, but that stops now. I've created a free tool to help you better understand yourself and share that understanding with your partner. Whether you're autistic, ADHD, AutoHD, or simply have a brain that works differently, this is for you. So here's what we actually do about it. And it comes straight out of that double empathy idea. Because if the gap goes both ways, the fix has to go both ways too. And I need to make myself very clear here, because this matters more for you than almost anyone. This is not a tool where the woman does all the work, all the translating, all the adapting. That's the old model, the one you've already been living for 20, 30, 40 years. You've been the translator in probably every relationship you've ever had. The one bending, the one decoding. We're done with that. Okay, this free workbook has 2 sections for both you and your partner. The idea is that you're building a 2-way love map, and you can get it for free at jennadalton.com/love map. That's jennadalton.com/LOVE LOVEMAP. And let me be clear, this won't fix everything, but it's a starting point. This is the work I do with my clients every single week to help partners gain a better understanding of each other, especially in mixed neurotype relationships. And I'm actually building an even bigger resource that covers so much more ground to help you better understand yourself and share that understanding with your partner. And you can get on the wait list for that at jennadalton.com/wired. That's jennadalton.com/WIRED. But for now, start with this love map. Get it, it's free, and could create some positive shifts in your relationship tonight. Seriously, one of the most powerful tools in a psychologist's tool belt is to help their clients name something that once felt invisible and hard to grasp. Gain a deeper understanding of yourself. Gain a deeper understanding of your partner. Share that with each other, and suddenly those arguments you keep having change in shape because you know how to communicate differently. You understand better what's going on underneath, and you know how to show up in a way that allows your partner to feel seen and how to ask your partner to do the same. That is so key. Head to jennadalton.com/love map to get your free workbook now. Okay, shake out the feels because this episode went deep, right? Not gonna lie, I got choked up a few times writing it because it brought back so many memories. I may not have your unique experience, but I do know what it's like to be an autistic woman in this world. And I know what it's like to spend your life being told you were cold or too much, distant and dramatic, not enough and exhausting, feeling hard to love. And yet we deserve love, authentic love that doesn't require us to mask or fit in or hold the space for everyone else but ourselves. Our brains work differently. Different doesn't mean disordered. Different doesn't mean wrong. The way you love isn't deficient. It's not wrong. It's just been spoken in a language some people have never bothered to learn. And language is so very learnable. So go get your workbook and start learning. I'm Jenna Dalton. Your brain isn't broken. It's beautiful. I'll talk to you soon.